tension lies in Stefan having to outsmart Damon and essentially beat him at his own game. Damon is not only a brutally vicious and cruel antagonist, but he also reveals himself to be incredibly intelligent and calculated. He's always one step ahead, and even if you manage to one-up him, he'll balance the scale almost immediately with a trail of blood. I like how everybody essentially spends the season trying to make sure Damon doesn't get upset, because he's so incredibly dangerous and unpredictable that doing anything that tickles his nerves could lead to the death of dozens of people. Like 145 years ago, Damon and Stefan were caught in a love triangle with a woman named Catherine, who was a vampire, and she also happens to look exactly like Elena. How the whole vampire lore of the show can be a bit cringe at times, but some of it is interesting. I like the way humans get turned into vampires. There's a whole process to it. It's not just a single bite and boom, you're a vampire too. It's actually really different. To become a vampire, you first need to drink the blood of a vampire. Once that's done, once you have vampire blood in your system, you have to die. It doesn't matter how, you just need to be dead. The vampire blood will then take over and bring you back to life, but only sort of. And if you don't drink human blood within 24 hours, you'll just die again, and this time you'll be dead for good. But having vampires wear magic rings to be able to walk outside during the day is incredibly stupid. Same goes for humans wearing magic rings that bring them back to life if they die due to supernatural reasons. I'd say that overall, season 1 is a fairly well-balanced season with some interesting storylines to follow and some really bad storylines that could have been avoided. The storyline of Vicky Donovan becoming a vampire slows down the pacing of the season a bit, but it still has a fairly effective progression. The idea of Vicky being a huge problem as a vampire because she's a drug addict, which now makes her a blood addict, is kind of stupid. You need to be perfect, but geez, it could have been so much better than this. I'm gonna tell you how I would have handled the Vampire Diaries as a show if I had been in Julie Plex's place. Ready? Okay, here we go. Number 1, the show should have only had 4 seasons. Catherine should have been the final villain. And yes, I know, technically Catherine is the final villain of the show, but I really want to emphasize on the technically. Does absolutely nothing, and then she just died. She didn't have a true resolution. She was just a last-minute bait and switch, so they just made some shit up on the spot without any real point to it. They fighting Arcadius only to kill him off like 3 episodes before the end, which is really awkward, by the way. And then out of nowhere, the writers are like, psych, Catherine! It was Catherine! And it's completely stupid. Not only is Catherine also the villain who has the biggest emotional connection to the character, the chain of events that led to everything in the show even happening. An attempt to unleash Hellfire on Mystic Falls to destroy it could work. Elena would turn into a vampire at the end of season 3, just like in the original show, Elena would turn into a vampire. And once Elena's transition is done in the first episode of season 4, she does. So basically, the season, Elena fights Caroline, she fights Bonnie, she fights Stefan, she fights Damon, maybe she even kills Alaric.